Welcome to the Boostly podcast, the podcast that gives you the tools, the tactics, the training, and most importantly, the confidence so you can go out there and get more direct bookings. Today, we're diving into a spotlight episode where we shine the Boostly spotlight onto a service or software that you need to know about as a host. And I'm joined by Luca Zambello. He's the co-founder and CEO of Jurny, which is, if you've not heard of it, it's an AI-driven tech company that automates and personalizes 100% of the guest journey while simplifying the operations for people like you and me, people like real hosts. So welcome along, Luca. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So what is one thing you'd like people to remember from this episode?
I think there's a lot of misconceptions around AI and especially even how it will impact different industries and hospitality more specifically. And we'll love to dive deep into that and you know shine some light on some of what we think that this technology can do for our industry.
Cool. I'm looking forward to diving in. And this is something which I think everybody needs to stick around for, which is when we talk about AI in general, there's so many nuances and misconceptions, and that's what we're gonna dive into today. Before we do that, can you give us like an elevator pitch of what Jurny is, just so people get an understanding of what it is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I mean, at its core, we obviously build a PMS because to build what we wanted to build, we need to build a PMS. But ultimately, we see Journey as an operating system, and the ability to unify into single dashboards multiple different tools, like even if they're not run by us, but like let's say that your dynamic pricing tool, your guest verification system is all unified, even if it's done by other people, other companies, into a single system. So you have a unified experience as a user, but most importantly, it's all centralized so you can automate everything while using AI. So it's um, pro we like to call it like next gen property management system. Um, and that it's amplified by AI that allows you to automate a lot of the moving aspects that comes with hospitality.
That's cool. And just a quick apology for anyone watching the visuals there. I've just made sure that you can see Luca as he's talking there. So we're going to dive more into the journey and what it does later on in the show. But I want to talk broadly about AI and how it's transforming every area of every business, but especially hospitality. What's one big way that you've seen it changing how hosts manage their properties?
Well, I think the shift is just happening. So I think we haven't, we're yet to see the true potential. Or some hosts are now start seeing more and more results. We have like obviously some early adopters, but even us as a company, which we think we're definitely on the cutting edge when it comes to releasing features utilizing this technology. We haven't even scratched the surface for what even it's about to come and what we have in the roadmap within the next 6 months. It's much more than what's out there, and it's already much more than what people even know that it exists. But obviously, the number one thing that everybody's seeing is the guest communication. But there's so many different layers of automated guest communications because again, AI is just as good as your data, and prompt is a form of data, by the way, that you provide to your AI. And I think that's actually number one issue that exists in almost every industry is the lack of infrastructure and so lack of data. But yeah, so to answer your questions, automated guest communications, automated guest reviews. That's the number one tool that people are using today, but it's evolving to a lot more than that.
It's cool. And I'm excited to see what's to come because I mean, I don't know of any other time personally. I mean, I've only been in hospitality for 6 years, but even during that time, obviously PMSs were quite new and some of the automation tools, but actually now being able to see the AI being integrated into that is changing how I operate every day in my business. And hopefully
Absolutely.
for people listening to this, they can get the step ahead or to put it into their business as well by listening to podcasts like this. So
100%.
I understand that Journey at core is a PMS and it automates the communication, the bookings and operations. It does all of that. What features do you think have the biggest impact? and why have you tried to tackle the AI side of things within the PMS?
Yeah, so I do believe that I would like to clarify one misconception
Mhm.
first before we go without even into that. And it's like a lot of people, their experience of AI is just chatting with ChatGPT, giving a very simple prompt and getting like a very basic answer. Um, and a challenge that I say to anybody that is yet to see the potential in this technology is like to actually try to really get good at prompting. And then sometimes even asking the AI itself, if you have a task that you want to accomplish, what kind of information do you need to accomplish your job at your best? And when you start really leveraging that and you start seeing the results of like what more data does for you and what kind of quality of results you are going to get, you'll be shocked.
Mhm.
And this is really like so that's what we focus on as a company in the past 3 years. It was to centralize as many information as possible and to be able to train these AI models to give the most accurate answers. Because in the end of the day, you're only going to use AI when it's accurate, and it has to be better than humans. And so obviously, I kind of divide it in three stages that are going to be the most useful thing in the industry and what people are utilizing already today. One obviously is the accuracy in guest communications, which is very important, but it's more of in a reactive way. That's kind of phase one, right? Then you have in between that you have another phase which is a product, for example, we just recently released, which is it's called Nia Copilot, which is having the ability to have an AI model that communicates within different parts of your system and different AI agents that work in your system. So you have one that specializes on answering, obviously, guest communication, one for reviews, one for pricing, one for upsells, one for your CRM, one for so you have one for SOPs, right? One for frequently asked questions. So you have different agents within the system, and you want to make sure that your guests can access information, but you also want to make sure that you change the way you interact with your system, with your software, where you can just simply ask a question. For example, hey, what's my average ADR for this weekend? What's my occupancy for this weekend? Hey, can you help me? Can you just lower pricing by 30% across the board?
Mhm.
Can you make a calendar block? And you can just talk to your software and have it do an action for you. So we released already a version of that, which is called Copilot. So I call that phase two. Phase three is, which is already a game changer, right? And phase three, it's what I think is even more exciting, which is the personalizations of the guest experience.
Mhm.
So I think this is really where things are gonna start completely changing the industry forever. Is where you're not just reactive, you're not just like you're not just having a more efficient operation, but you actually are going to create better guest experiences, fully customized guest experience, anticipate guest needs, make sure that you create brand loyalty with your own brand, which is something that for small operators was unthinkable up until now. Even for large operators in the short term rental, unless you're like a large hotels, it was really hard to build customer loyalty and a brand, and that's going to completely change.
It's exciting to even think about, and I've never thought about it in the phases that you're talking about. But I mean, there's a big phase zero at the moment where so many people listening to this just will not use any AI in their business,
Hmm.
which is crazy. If you're one of them people listening to this, then there's so many reasons to just get on the AI bandwagon because I liken this to the early days of the internet. You know, of those who were creating websites and doing all that stuff. We're a couple of years in now with AI, or 2.5 years in with AI, aren't we, since ChatGPT launch? And I am definitely one of those people you've just described. I'm probably in that kind of phase one myself, maybe starting to dabble in phase two and things like that. But that kind of initially, when people think of AI, I think you're absolutely right. That misconception, people just think of it as like, well, it's just guest communication. I don't trust AI, and therefore I want to do guest communication. And they may have dabbled, but even if somebody has dabbled 6 months ago, a year ago, then it's changed already, hasn't it? And this is the exciting thing of how fast this is moving. So the sheer fact that you can do things that you mentioned there, where there's Copilot on Journey, sounds amazing because I'm one of these people who I voice note. I like the fact that I can voice note something and turn ideas very quickly into actions. And that's going to be such a time saver. And that phase three, which is where it's suggesting things that can improve guest journey, then I'm excited for that.
It's going to change.
We
It's going to
obviously
change everything.
I mean, it's in every part of our lives as well, isn't it? But obviously at Boostly, we really focus on direct bookings. So a question I've got to ask you is, the co-founder is, how does Journey in particular help our listeners with reducing their reliance on things like OTAs, and how can it help them get direct bookings?
I think stage three segues perfectly into this question, actually.
Mhm.
Um, because once you are able to create brand loyalty, full customizations, and full like personal touch for guests, and this is one of the biggest misconceptions, right? Oh well, AI is never going to be as good as humans at creating a personal experience. And yes, you're actually right. It's never going to be as good as humans. It's going to be much better than humans.
I like that.
And so like especially if you are like the reality is when do you have direct bookings? When you build a brand, right? Whether it's even like a single home, but you created a brand around that home, or you have a collection of properties. In the end of the day, like once people wants to come back to you because of a specific experience you give them, and they don't want to look elsewhere, right?
Mhm.
When you're just providing a place and you're just like everybody else, you have no loyalty, so people will just go back to an OTA and trying to shop around for best pricing or best reviews, right? Or a combination of both, or locations and so on, right? But when you create a brand loyalty, and when you create like unforgettable experiences, that's when people come back. And it's so hard when you like, I mean, I used to be a former host myself. I managed up to 300 units. That's kind of why I started like building this company. And it was almost impossible to think about the guest experience because I was so busy with everything else,
Mhm.
right? And I think what's super exciting and fascinating about AI is that it's about to change completely. It's actually a big core believer of our company is like to really uh, give your time back and your why back, right? Why you started this and what you want to do in the first place, and then you end up not being able to do it because you're busy with everything else.
Yeah.
I used to be so busy managing my own software versus thinking about guest experiences, busy managing my own operations. And so, like, this is going to really change. One, it's going to streamline, obviously, your operations, but two, you're going to be able to automate this super personal touch and super personalized guest experience, which ultimately is going to lead to a lot more direct bookings, a lot more brand loyalty.
There's two things that I want to touch on that you've mentioned there, which first of all, AI will be better. I know there's a lot of people, including me, who go, oh, I don't want it to replace me, and a little bit like cringe when they think of it. But I completely agree with you, by the way, that ultimately, can a person one-to-one be better? Well, yes, but you can't multiply yourself for, like you say, in your case, 300 people hosting 300 guests at a time. And this is where, can AI do it better and more consistently? And that's that consistently thing, which as humans, we're fallible, right? And this is where, with a piece of tech, it will improve the chances that we are offering the right things at the right time and talking about our brand to encourage more people to come back and book direct. And that's what I'm really excited about, especially as I mean, I look after at the moment 23 units. And when it comes down to thinking of how would I manage my time if it was 230 units, or like you, 300 units, well, I would really need to get good at having the right tools, the right systems in place. And I can already see, as most listeners to this hopefully use some automations where emails go out at set times and things like that. But ultimately, with what you're saying here around AI, especially around the personalization of the journey, you can kind of have the message go out when it's most impactful instead of just at a set time, or when a guest has said or done something, that information can be pulled on by the AI to be able to be sent at that time. Is that, am I right in thinking that?
I give you the perfect example. Yes, absolutely. And I give you a perfect example. Like you can set up automated messages, for example, for guests to leave your reviews, right?
Hmm.
What happens if that automated message gets sent to somebody who's actually had a negative guest experience with you?
Yeah.
That's not a good. That's not good, right? Same thing is like, what happens? So obviously AI can prevent absolutely prevent that, but that's at very basic. But then it gets way more advanced than that, right? In which it's basically impossible for you to gather information about every single guest and record it in a CRM and in a really organized way. It's basically impossible, especially for small operators, right?
Hmm.
But even for large, this happens, and it happens in even the big brands hotels, right? This is not a problem just for short-term rental. It's across the board. Although they're better at it, it's still hard for them. To imagine a system where basically every single time a guest stay with you, every single interaction is being recorded, it's being stored, and then those information can be utilized for personalized services. For example, you're going to remember the guest name, you're going to remember the family name, you're going to know what their birthday is, you're going to know, oh, they travel to, I don't know, like Florida with their kids during this time because it was like their daughter's birthday. Well, guess what? You can remind them 3 or 4 months earlier, like, hey, I know your daughter's birthday is coming up, so I wanted to give you like a discount for your next stay if you're coming here for your daughter's birthday. And like those type of experiences, they're impossible at scale, but even in small scales, it's almost impossible to be on top of that. That's just another example. But also, I want to address one misconception that it is happening, that you touched upon, is that AI is going to substitute me. And we need to start from the fact and all agree on the fact that AI is an enhancer. It's not going to substitute humans. In the end of the day, it's going to take whatever your vision is and make it bigger, better, and enable you to execute it faster. So like it's going to really gift and be an amazing tool for creative people, and for people that properly leverage this technology, right? If you don't, AI is not going to substitute humans. It's going to substitute the humans that don't know how to leverage it. And that is going to happen much faster than people think. And this is why it's important that we're not scared of this technology, where we actually embrace it and try to utilize it every day and see how we can get advantages from this technology in our day-to-day operation and life.
And would you say that's a myth about AI that you'd like to debunk is what we've just mentioned, or is there other myths that you go, well, actually, people get a lot wrong about AI?
Well, I think there's literally like it's hard for people to sit in the middle. The truth is in the middle. There's people that are like, well, AI is not that good, cannot do much about it, like it cannot do much with it, and I think that's a myth and it's wrong. I think AI is huge and it's going to change a lot of things. It's going to revolutionize a lot of things. And then on the other end, you have people that are like absolutely terrified by this technology. They're going to be like, it's replacing our jobs. Like, what are we going to be able to do and stuff like that. And by the way, I saw this phase within inside of my organization because we don't use AI only as within obviously our software as a service, but also inside it as a company, right? Making
Mhm.
things more efficient as a company. And and definitely there was we got both phases. We had the skepticism at first for majority of the company, and then we got everybody being terrified. It's like, okay, we're all going to be out of jobs once they understood the power of this technology. And now finally we got to the truth phase, which is like, okay, but this is if everybody's going to use this technology, the only thing is going to happen is that we're going to 10x our output.
Mhm.
And so we're going to be able to do what we wanted to do in the first place much better, much faster. Because the reality is, like, if you think about it, like, nobody's doing what they want to do in the ultimate way. There's always room for improvement, huge room for improvement. And so all it's going to do is going to ultimately improve that. I'll give a practical example. Like, content creation used to be done only by massive production company that cost
Mhm.
like millions of dollars to produce even the smallest piece of content. Now you have content creators and influencers. They create content with an iPhone or a phone,
Mhm.
right? Like there's just a camera. So content creation costs just went down drastically. And all it meant is that now a lot more people could create content. And so a lot more people could get a piece of the pie. That's really what's going to happen at a much even bigger scale, almost across every single industry with AI.
I can definitely see it, and it's exciting. I mean, what a great time to get involved in any business, but especially hospitality, because it's something which can be it can actually be on the tip of the spear of some of these new technologies and how people interact with a business, which is super cool. But I guess one of the questions that I've got and that people listening to this is how can some of these automations enhance rather than replace that personal guest experience? Like I know guests where I know what their favorite drink is, and I know that. Am I still overly worried about this?
Yeah, no, I think as I said, ultimately is going to enable humans to do a lot more less like it's going to substitute the repetitive task and the annoying work, but is ultimately going to enable you to do a lot more, right? So I give a perfect example. So for let's say you have you have a team that takes care of guest communication. So think about if you can remove them from the day-to-day guest communication of answering silly questions, where is the coffee machine? How do you turn it on? How do you turn on the TV? Like and so on. But you can actually have them dedicate their time to create custom experiences, right? To give to the AI. Like so, for example, like what I give you the example before, like when somebody's coming back can I create an SOP or can I communicate with my AI? It's like, hey, can you come up with some clever ideas of things that I can offer when someone's anniversary is coming up? And you could think about it. You can do that even in a conversation, in a chat with your software instead of like having to click around a bunch of like non-intuitive UI UXs that exist in all management softwares today, which I very much dislike, right? Like it's nothing worse than when you get a software that you don't know how to use and this is happening.
Yeah.
The more comprehensive the softwares are, the more complex are to use. Think about it now, you can have conversations with it. You can access any part of it by just having a conversation without knowing where the hidden button is or where the hidden setting is
Mhm.
and spending 30 minutes doing that and maybe not figure it out in the first place. And you can have a conversation and say, how can I improve this in my operation? Can I improve these guest experiences? And so ultimately what's going to happen is that you're going to create a much better experience for your guest, much better revenue retentions and people coming back to your brand. But it's also ultimately going to happen is that the people that are going to do it faster, they're going to be a lot more successful than others.
Mhm.
And also, but simultaneously, what's going to happen, the standards is going to go up, right? Then the expectations of guests is going to be like to have a much better guest experience because more and more hosts are going to be able to service that. So that's why it's important to be on top of it as well.
I completely agree with you. At the end of the day, people need to be taking this advantage and getting this started as soon as possible. And that must be quite cool to be a co-founder of a piece of software where so many hosts are going to be using it in different ways to help their guests' journey and to do exactly what you've said, where on that co-pilot to be able to tell it to do different things. And this is where seeing these new changes and these time saving changes where actually then people can think more about their business as a whole as opposed to having to go, oh God, I need to remember this or this person's coming then or all the stuff which hosts used to have to worry about before PMSs and especially before AI. And the fact that Journey's got that in one is amazing. So what would you say to hosts who are listening to this and they're new to AI? What's the easiest way to really start to put some automation or some AI into their business?
Even before talking about specific hospitality, honestly, this is what something I told everybody in our company.
Mhm.
And sometimes even our tech team. I'm not a technical founder, but I've been since the day one of this technology, I've been experimenting even prior to ChatGPT. I've been a truly believer into this technology and how much it's going to change everything. And one thing that I tried to change, and I have changed, was the culture within our company. And but first, I had to change my own culture, and I started utilizing. And this is something that I tell everybody: if your spouse, if your boyfriend, girlfriend are not jealous of your AI, you have an issue. You're not using it enough. Um, I, I don't know if you experimented with like ChatGPT voice mode. There's
Yeah.
when you turn it on, you can also turn on the camera and stuff like that. And I have outside of Journey, I actually do even fun projects with it. Not someone who's ever built a PC. I literally built a gaming PC using AI. I had zero experience. I was sharing my whole everything that I was doing, and it helped me do it. And it was like, and literally, I plugged it in, turned it on, and it worked, which is not not something that I would have expected, but it helped me to guide me through every single step. Like same thing. Sometimes I don't know what to cook. I just like send a photo of or show the video of what ingredients I have in the refrigerator. It's like I'm gonna come up with something easy that's not gonna take me
Nice.
time, and it does. So why I'm saying this is because once you get used to it, to really the think like you have to change your mindset and
Hmm.
how you think about this technology. Once you get used to use it even in the small things, now eventually, even if it's completely unrelated to hospitality, eventually you're going to translate it on how can I use this technology for my business. You have to first truly understand the power of it. And the more you use it, the more you're going to understand. Because again, the biggest misconceptions when people first use it and they write the most basic prompt on ChatGPT and they get the same whatever results. But have you ever tried to give it a deep prompt with a lot of data, or actually a lot of information? Like, have you tried to give like a bunch of documentation that says like, "Hey, help me make sense of this"? Like we do that. We do that outside of like Journey, even for our own organization, even for to help us plan on our roadmap, on drafting out like new product releases. Have I thought of everything? We create our own GPTs for that. So you have once you get used to that, then you're gonna see how to implement in hospitality. And to answer the more direct questions in hospitality, obviously it's to start experimenting with this technology also in your own operations with the few good softwares that are out there not right now that they leverage this technology.
It's very cool. And you're absolutely right. That mindset, the first thing people need to do is get in the mindset. That example I've not heard before where you're giving it the ingredients you've got and it's kind of doing that for you. It is literally going to touch every part of our lives. And I mean I use the voice mode and you can actually talk to ChatGPT like as a person. And I have had that exact comment from my other half, which says you spend more time talking to that thing than you do to me. And I'm like, no, genuinely, it is like having is somebody you can bounce ideas of. I do think the caveat to this is you've got to be very aware that it's not a person. It doesn't really think. It's just going off the prompt, and it's got no there's I see posts on Reddit where people are saying, "Hey, it's my therapist," and it knows. And I was like, well, you've just got to be aware that when you're telling it a prompt, it's responding with the information you've got. But that's what it's
Correct.
great at doing, isn't it? It's great at sorting out stuff which we just wouldn't be able to think about as quick as it can think about it. And that is really to, as long as you put in the correct prompt in and you put in the correct inputs, the amount that you can get out of it is just huge. And I think that that mindset
Huge.
thing is a great answer. I really do. So uh, what I'd like to do, Luca, is throw the microphone out. I know we, on this spotlight episode, we tend to keep these about a car journey's length, but I know we haven't talked a whole lot about Journey itself. Where can people, if I open the microphone, can you tell us a bit about Journey and where people can come and find more information if they're eager to get their PMS and their AI side of things combined? Where do they need to go? What do they need to know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you want to get in touch with us, Journey is spelled JURNY.com. We have a very active sales team that I'm sure if you send an inquiry, they'll be very excited to show you a demo of the product. And but you can also I try to be I'm pretty busy, but I try to be as reachable as possible as well on my own LinkedIn, Luca Zambello, if you want to search for me, and then obviously we have a Journey channel also on LinkedIn, very active, and Instagram as well. So those are most active channels.
That's cool. Well, Luca, thank you so much for sharing this. I know that I, for one, are going to go check out Journey. I just enjoy these kind of conversations, which are about AI and what the future is doing. And that ultimately, as hosts, what I'm taking away from this is having the mindset of actually going and testing it and using it, number one. Number two is to actually see where I can implement this in my business and to go and have the right tools, go and check out Jurny, go and have a demo, and then to really see what this space is going to be. I mean, can you imagine the conversation we can have in 12 months from now, considering what's already changed? It's going to be amazing. And that's a great way to end. Is there any final thoughts, or what do you think the future of this kind of industry is going to be like?
Yeah, I mean, my final thought is honestly, don't miss out on this, right? Like there's, like you said, it's what an exciting time to be alive. Um, you know, don't be too skeptical, and don't be too worried about it. Actually, trying to embrace it. The people I know, for many people, changes are hard, but this is a very exciting change, and if you embrace it, you're going to be very happy and very pleased, and your life is honestly going to be better.
Right.
For me, it has been. I've been able to execute a lot more things than I wanted to, but that I was even able to do before. So it's very exciting.
Amen to that. I really like that. And thank you again, Luca, for coming on the Boostly podcast. Thank you too for listening to this on the Boostly podcast. Do share this with other hosts and people who will get the value out of this, and they can go and check out Jurny. If you want to continue the conversation, you can go on Facebook. There's a free Facebook group called the Hospitality Community, and you can come and join the group. You can talk about this podcast or any other hospitality questions in there. And to check out Jurny and go and check out Luca, you can have a look at the links in and around however you're either listening or watching this media. Thanks for
Thank
watching
you,
this.
Liam, for having me.
No worries. Thanks, Luca. See you again. Bye for now.
See you.
Having a blast, gonna get it on the Boostly podcast. Boostly like Bruce Lee, cause it's so hard and the T is loose leaf. Making up those rhymes, don't write it, just do it loosely.